All right, guys, on to Utah State. I think, since I came to UNM, I've been very impressed by Utah State as an overall program. You look back, a lot of trademark things to me. First, physical defense, multiple blitz package on defense, always really good on special teams. Now they're in the second year with the offensive coordinator, second year with the quarterback. And it's impressive to watch. I think Matt Wells has done an excellent job. You look back 2 years ago, I think they were a 3-9 team after having a lot of success prior to that. 3-9 team. Last year they're 6-7. This year now they're 6-1 starting off this season. But there's some trademark things. I think really good players. I think maybe I saw they have 14 players in the NFL right now. Been to 6 out of 7 bowl games. A very good, solid program. It's kind of interesting. They have a new defensive coordinator this year, his first year. But they look very similar to what they've been on defense. They lost their special teams coordinator, a guy that really did a great job. But there's a thread through that where their special teams, they don't really have a coordinator. They just divide it up amongst their staff. And it looks like their special teams has always looked. So I think a very aligned program, even though they've had 2 different head coaches. They have new assistant coaches. They're aligned as a program, and I give them credit for that. You can tell that they are in the second year with their offense schematically. You can tell that it's the quarterback's second year. He is much more efficient. They obviously trust him much more. And they're averaging 47.7 points a game, I believe. And I think it's number 2 in the country. But they also have so many non-offensive touchdowns. They've done a good job on special teams, as I've mentioned. They've done a good job scoring on defense with turnovers. They have had some games that were just complete routes. They've had a couple of those. They're into the meat of the Mountain West Conference schedule now. But, as you say each and every week, it's certainly at least, one eye on the opponent, but maybe 2 eyes on yourself. And certainly, coming off the Fresno State game, there's a lot of things for us. Things pop up each and every week that sometimes you don't expect, and then you have to solve, and you just can't have reoccurring problems. So obviously we had some frustration, discipline issues Saturday night. We cannot have those again. Because, you sound like a hypocrite to a bit when you talk about being a disciplined team, you talk about being a disciplined program, and then some of those things happen. And that's always the difficulty. Physically we made some progress. I do think we continue to improve as a team, but there were some glaring things Saturday night that catches everybody's attention, as they should, because it's looking at the big picture from the outside. Looking at it specifically from the inside, there are some positive things that sometimes get masked because of the overall picture of what happened. So it's rebound from Fresno. It's continued to show improvement. We've got a chance to play another 6-1 team. Fresno was 5-1. Utah State's 6-1, and I imagine San Diego State will be 7-1 next week. So again, with the draw of who we get from the Western Division, getting Fresno State, San Diego State this year, we knew going in what kind of schedule this was going to be, and we're in the middle of it right now. So, Steve, you want to start it off?
Yeah, I was wondering, what did you do in reaction to the penalties? What did you do to your team?
Well, what I did was, sometimes talk gets tuned out. Obviously there was a lot of messages going into the game, as there is every game, about no self-inflicted mistakes. But what I did something I never do. I went back and took the TV copy with the commentary of the TV copy, along with all the replays you get from the TV copy. And I took every kind of emotional thing that happened in the game and put that together. Starting with Delane, the offensive pass interference that was called on Delane, to the miscommunication on the kickoff return where the off returner said go, 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 and the ball was on the 4-yard line, to Schuler's hitting the defenseless player, to Sharon flipping the ball up in the air, to two missed opportunities in the first half, to deep throws to Ume that were incomplete, to them getting the ball back with 58 seconds and looking what it looked like to people watching on TV or people from the stands. And they complete one short pass, 30 yards and penalties, and they score on 2 plays at the end of the first half when it's 17-7. We have a chance to have momentum going at halftime to 24-7. And then in the second half, I showed the back-to-back, the defensive pass interference on D'Angelo Ross and then Jalen Burrell out of frustration saying something. So what I did was, here's what we're put on tape. Here's what people that watched us from the outside saw. You make the decision what was a good call. You make the decision what was a bad call. But more than that, you make the decision on how we reacted to what happened. And here's what it looked like. And I think the message was well taken because what we put on tape was not indicative of a well-coached team, of a disciplined team, and certainly not a championship team, particularly that was an underdog going into the game. So I think sometimes it's better off just to sit back and say, okay, here's what it is. Here's what it looked like. Now, with that said, we had a lot of effort. We had a lot of effort in that game. And we got a lot of kids that really want to win. We've got a lot of personalities. Things happened that we didn't respond well to. But at least it's not a flat line kind of approach where guys just accept whatever happened. It's using your frustration to your advantage, not using your frustration to the disadvantage where you unravel as a team. Again, a lot of attention should be given to that. I get it. That's not the biggest picture in the end. The biggest picture is Fresno State was a better football team than us, that executed better, and we're trying to catch Fresno. That's still the bigger picture, but we didn't help ourselves by the way we played. And you guys know, we have to be the margin for error, as with a lot of teams, but particularly with us, is very small and no self-inflicted mistakes. But to answer your question, I said, you look at it. You look at it and see what it looked like. You don't need me. They know it. They knew it immediately after it happened. But here's what it looked like. Because every week, all we talk about is what are you going to put on tape? What are we going to put on tape collectively as a team? What's it going to look like?
Coach, how important is it in this next game to get playmakers involved? That was a big struggle on Saturday.
Well, we missed 2 deep throws to Ume, as I mentioned in the first half, that were big plays, big touchdowns. Delane had 2 offensive pass interferences. We ran the reverse to Lilly, double reverse, and we had targeting on Zanier against the defenseless player. Tyrone, I thought, ran really hard. I thought Amari ran really hard. Marcus Williams was back, caught 1 pass. I think we're getting the ball to the playmakers. We just have to execute better. There's some flashes of some really good things. We didn't get mauled by Fresno like we did the year before. In fact, our offensive line probably played their best game of the year. We're still going through growing pains offensively. We're still going through growing pains. There's a lot of good things. Getting the ball to your playmakers. Our receivers have a lot of opportunities on some bubble screen type plays where the quarterback sometimes doesn't execute it and carry it out. There's a lot of little different things there that are happening.
Coach, a couple of good things about the game, I guess you could say, is that we did come back in the first half, 3:21 to go, and we scored, although I know what happened there. But that was good that they were able to do that. The same in the second half with 3:27 or whatever it was to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. I've never seen a ref so far, you know, in
Yeah.
the end zone. But I mean, that was a touchdown. But that was nice to see that the team didn't give up, and both times at the end of each of the first half and the second half, they were able to execute.
Yeah, it was a little bit like Wisconsin, right? You know, we had a couple drives against Wisconsin. We just couldn't execute well enough. Field position hurt us a little bit, quite honestly, too. You know, the starting on the 4-yard line after that kickoff return. You know, and just to clarify that rule, you know, this is the first year where fair catches are in play on a kickoff return. This is the first year they've ever had that in college football. And something we've taught forever is the off returner who's not catching the ball. In this case was Emmanuel Harris. He looks to make sure that the returner is in position to catch it. Once the returner catches it, he turns and points to our 2 up backs to time out the return. Well, the referee interpreted that point as a fair catch. If Lilly would have caught the ball, we'd had the ball on the 25 because it was a fair catch and the ball comes to the 25. The fact that he dropped the ball, now the fair catch is off because obviously the return team has a chance to recover the fumble. So that's why we had that ball where it was spotted. You know, so we've gone back now and taken any doubt all the way. We're only going to do verbal communication and not point. I do think next year the NCAA, there's a good chance they will change the rule because they want more fair catches on kickoffs. That once you fair catch, which he didn't fair catch, he just pointed, but even if you muff the catch, the ball's probably coming out to the 25-yard line to make more people fair catch the ball because they're trying to eliminate returns a little bit. But, you know, the competitiveness of the team is not the issue. It's the overall execution. And then, as always, it is a matchup situation. It is, if you don't win in recruiting, most of the time you're not going to win in the game. That's the reality of the big picture of all this. So we played a really good team in Fresno. There were some good things in that game, but because we had self-inflicted mistakes, you sound like a complete idiot to stand up and say how much improvement you made because of the glaring things that happened, right? So there were some positives in there. There were some positives that were overshadowed by some frustration type things that we all felt. And some of those calls added to it. But that doesn't matter. That's the thing about mental toughness, right? I mean, there's always reasons to cave in. But if you're mentally tough, you're mentally tough, you're mentally tough, you don't. But the last play of the game was probably a microcosm of the game. When the umpire gets right in the middle of the crossing route. And not that it would have mattered, but it kind of was what the game was. Just a kind of bizarre thing that we didn't react to real well.
What did Wyoming do to kind of keep Utah in check? Was that something your defense can do?
Wyoming's really good on defense, really good. They have been all season. They do what Wyoming does. You know, their front four. The consensus in this league would be their front four is the best in this league. I think there's 2 very high draft choices: the one defensive tackle and a defensive end. Wyoming's good on defense. They just played their defense. Plus, Wyoming in the second half ran the ball and kept the ball. You know, Utah State didn't have the ball a whole lot in that game. You know, it was as much Wyoming's offense as it was Wyoming's defense. One thing, this has been a competitive series as of late. You know, there's been a lot of really close games in this series. You know, hopefully this is a competitive game Saturday.
Coach, what do we do to get a better pass rush? It seems like we're giving the quarterback too much time. Your quarterbacks can only cover maybe 2 or 3 seconds back there. And it's pretty tough when you're going up against bigger receivers.
Yeah.
So we have to put pressure on that quarterback. What are we going to do this week?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's accurate. As you know, we played a lot of man-to-man coverage early, pressured early, got beat over the top by some big physical receivers. The last 3 weeks, we've made some progress, quite honestly, of not getting the ball thrown over our heads. Played a little more zone coverage. always when you look at teams that are really good zone coverage teams, they've got some dominant pass rushers. You go back and look at any NFL team that's kind of a zone team, they're going out and they're getting those pass rushers. Because to play zone coverage, you better have a combination of really good rush. Really good rush. We don't quite have that. So we are caught a little bit in, as a lot of teams are, that match of trying to be some zone, some man, some pressure. We're caught in that right now. I mean, everybody sees the same thing. Everybody sees the same thing. That's the dilemma you have in defensive football.
Coach, what makes Utah State stand out like they do? What do you respect the most? What are you trying to take away from them in order to pull off this win?
Yeah, Henry, I appreciate the question. I think I answered that, quite honestly, when I started this conversation, started this press conference, going through all the things that Utah State has been and continues to be. It's an excellent program. I think they have 24 players that have been on LDS missions, so they're a very mature football team. They have 12 players that are married. You look back, they've been to 6 out of 7 bowl games. I could keep going. They've got a really strong football program there. The thing that they've done, I think, over the last couple years, they brought in a new offensive coordinator who has a tremendous background, not only at Missouri for a long time, but also with Mike Leach at Washington State. They're in the second year and made a full commitment to that offense. They have a true identity on offense. The quarterback's in his second year. Very talented. 3 times he's been Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Week. So it's a combination of a really solid program where there's been some commonalities through that program year after year to they are in a really good place offensively right now with the second year in the system, the second-year quarterback who has a chance to be a star. You know, it's a combination of a lot of things. But, you know, yeah, they're a good program. You know, they've been to 6 out of 7 bowl games.
You talked a lot about the strengths. Do you see any weaknesses that you think your team can take advantage of this weekend?
With Utah State? I don't know that there's anything, no. I mean, there's not any one thing that jumps out where you say, boy, I'm licking my chops to go do this. I do think the fact that we're an improving team. I do think that this has been a pretty competitive series. You know, but there's not one thing that you say, okay, wow, we can take advantage of that. And if there was, I'd say, okay, there are a couple things. I wouldn't tell you what they were, you know, but I'd at least admit that there were some things there that we thought we could do. They're really good in the kicking game. They're really good on defense. And their offense I just talked about. And they're playing at home, you know, and they've had great support at home. I mean, their student body is pretty impressive, pretty neat place to play. You know, so, but I think, again, it's a Mountain West Conference game that I expect us to be competitive in, and you know, I think we just have to keep fighting to get better.
Anything else?
Sharon, you talked about CSU struggled a little bit. How did he look in front of us? I know he missed a couple of those long passes, but is he progressing? Like
Yeah. Arch, I think, to answer your question, it was better against Fresno from a read standpoint, just from a read standpoint. And a lot of that's with the run game, too. It was a little cleaner. It was a little cleaner. He did miss 2 deep throws for sure. He did throw the interception. And you know, after, you know, he makes the play, he makes a great scramble. He's got all kind of adrenaline. He gets up on the ground, throws the ball up in the air. He knew right away. He knew right away he did it. The very next play, he throws the interception to the kid, right? So he had a couple things that were, and one time, we were very fortunate he didn't get a grounding penalty when he just took, you know, he's under duress and threw the ball down. But from a read standpoint, it was better. Other than on the pass interference on the very first play to Delane on the offensive pass interference, Lilly, which is the inside receiver, you may have noticed, there was no one within 15 or 20 yards of Lilly. That was his first read, but he went ahead and launched it up to Delane. As we progress, we'll know more as Sharon matures if he has the ability to truly go through the reads as he gets more reps, Because right now, he does make up his mind a little bit prematurely where he's going. It happened on the last play against Colorado State, the 3rd and 6. Is that a result of not having enough reps, not playing enough, because he's still young as far as playing, or is it going to be he's not able to mature through the reads to be able to see it all? That's what always it comes down to with the quarterback, right? Are you able to see it all and go through your progressions? Is it because right now he's getting better? How good can he get doing that? Because he has ability. I love the way he plays. I mean, he brings it now. He does. I mean, he's physical. He loves the game. But we always know those intangible things are what makes a difference at that position. Those are the intangible things. Again, Gerhardt practiced a little bit today. Getting better. I still think he's a week or two away. But it is nice to get him back out there, too. All right, man. Thank you, guys.